All right, so picture this. A rocket so big, it needs a launch tower with gigantic arms just to catch it when it lands.
That's like something straight out of a movie.
Right. But that's SpaceX's Starship we're talking about, and its recent Flight 5 mission. It totally changed the game for space travel.
Yeah, and the most interesting thing about Starship, it's not just about breaking records for size, though it definitely does that.
It's huge.
It's about changing how we think about space travel entirely, making it more frequent, reliable, more like how we fly around the world already.
More like air travel.
Exactly. And a lot more affordable, eventually.
And speaking of changing the game, on October 13th, 2024, SpaceX pulled off something straight out of a sci-fi film. Imagine this. The launch tower's arms, they call them chopsticks, guiding that massive, super heavy booster back down to the landing pad.
I saw the footage. Incredible.
I mean, it's hard to believe it even happened.
Even for someone like me, and I follow this stuff closely, it was a remarkable thing to see. Catching a rocket booster midair.
Yeah.
Never been done before.
Some of the SpaceX employees were even comparing it to magic.
I can see why. The precision alone is astounding.
Mind-blowing, for
Yeah.
sure. But tell me, why is this chopstick maneuver such a big deal? I mean, we already have reusable rockets, right?
True, but those boosters typically land in the ocean or on those drone ships, remember?
Right, of course.
Which means weeks, sometimes months of work to get them back and refurbished. This catch. Directly on the launch pad.
So much faster.
The goal is to relaunch in days, not weeks or months, which means...
Way cheaper.
Exactly. It could drastically speed up how often we're launching things into space.
Makes space exploration more like, well, like you said, hopping on a plane. So this is about way more than just a cool landing. It's a potential game changer.
Exactly. Goes back to their whole thing, reusability being the core of what SpaceX is trying to achieve. We've got to talk about the other half of Starship, though. Can't forget about the ship itself.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in the whole booster landing, but yeah, the ship has a pretty important role to play.
Absolutely.
So what happened this time? Did it stick the landing?
This time, the ship, the upper stage, it didn't stick the landing, no.
Okay.
But it did successfully separate from the booster,
Gotcha.
and it reached space. So still a big step.
So it splashed down in the Indian Ocean like they planned.
Right, exactly. It's
Yeah.
all part of the process, each flight.
Yeah.
They're testing, gathering data, constantly making changes to the design.
They're always learning and improving. It's fascinating to watch that process unfold in real time, even with something as complex as, well, rocket science.
Well, you've got that right. It's all about iteration with them.
Which makes me think if they were targeting August for this launch, what caused the delay? Why did we have to wait until October?
That'd be the FAA. They're the ones who give the final go-ahead for any U.S. launch.
So even SpaceX, with all their innovation, they have to wait for the bureaucratic green light.
That's right.
I bet that didn't go over well.
SpaceX definitely voiced their frustration, even made a whole blog post about it titled, "Get this, Starships are meant to fly."
Very subtle.
Right. You can imagine the tension. You got SpaceX moving at warp speed, and then you got the regulations trying to keep up.
Classic clash of speed versus caution.
But the important thing is, Flight 5 happened. And it did what it was supposed to do.
And what a sight it was. Seeing that booster gracefully touch down on the launch pad, it felt like a glimpse into the future of space travel.
For sure. A truly historic moment.
Yeah.
But like we were saying, Flight 5, it's just one step.
On a very long road.
Exactly.
A long road indeed. But that's SpaceX's style, isn't it? Thinking big, aiming for Mars, 5 starships, a whole base on another planet. Incredible. But let's be real, can they actually pull it off?
That's the question, isn't it? The billion-dollar question, maybe more like a trillion. And the answer, it's not exactly a simple one.
I figured as much, but humor me. What's standing in their way? What are the biggest obstacles they'd have to overcome to actually make this Martian dream a reality?
Well, for starters, imagine trying to coordinate a mission where 5 of these massive spacecraft are heading to another planet, a months-long journey. That alone is a monumental challenge. And then, landing them safely on Mars, even one of them, making sure they can operate without constant help from Earth in one of the harshest environments we can imagine. That's a Herculean task, even for SpaceX.
Yeah, the logistics alone are mind-boggling. Launch windows, trajectories, communication delays across millions of miles. It's almost too much to think about.
And that's really just the beginning. Then you've got the technology itself. Life support systems, how to protect them from radiation, power generation, everything they need just to survive on a planet with almost no resources. It gets complex really quickly.
So it's like packing for a camping trip, but instead of a weekend, it's, well, forever. And the stakes are a bit higher than forgetting the bug spray.
Good analogy. And we tend to focus so much on the wow factor of getting to Mars, right? The tech, the
Yeah.
rockets. But the real challenge, making sure those people can survive once they're there,
Hmm?
long term, that's something else altogether.
And let's not forget about the human factor either. We're talking about sending people on a mission that could last years. Stuck in a spacecraft millions of miles from home, that's got to take a toll.
Exactly. We see it even with the astronauts on the International Space Station. They go through so much prep, psychological screening, the works,
Right.
and they still feel the strain of being isolated, confined like that.
That's gonna mess with your head.
Now, amplify that. A mission to Mars. Communication delays mean you can't just call home for support.
You'd really be on your own out there.
The mental toughness required for that kind of journey, it's almost unimaginable.
So we've got the logistics, the tech hurdles, the human factor to consider, and on top of all that, the cost. This isn't exactly a budget-friendly endeavor.
But put it mildly, funding is definitely a huge hurdle. SpaceX does have government contracts, private investors too, but this would take an unprecedented amount of money.
It's not like they can just pass the hat around, right?
Spare some change for a trip to Mars?
Right. Huh. But seriously, SpaceX is always looking for ways to cut costs. Reusable rockets are a big part of that, and Starship's success helps with that.
Sure.
But they're also exploring ways to use resources they find on Mars itself. That's called in situ resource utilization.
In situ resource utilization, that sounds like it's straight out of Star Trek.
It does, doesn't it? But it's crucial. Shipping everything from Earth. Way too expensive and really not even practical. So they're looking at things like extracting water ice from the Martian soil.
And they could use that for what? Drinking water?
Exactly. But also to make oxygen, even rocket fuel for the trip back home. Imagine a closed loop, a Martian water cycle that could support life and further exploration.
A little slice of Earth, but on Mars? I've even heard some people talking about terraforming, making Mars more like Earth. Is that even a possibility? Terraforming, yeah. It's a very ambitious idea, bordering on science fiction, I'd say. We're talking about changing a whole planet, and that could take centuries. But some scientists think it might be possible. Releasing trapped greenhouse gases to make the atmosphere thicker, maybe even introducing specially engineered organisms to make breathable air.
We'd literally be playing God. It's kind of terrifying when you think about it.
It definitely raises some ethical questions. But even if SpaceX gets those 5 Starships to Mars, sets up a base, what then? Do we start seeing headlines about the first Martian colony? Is that the next step?
It's the big question, isn't it? What does it actually mean for humanity?
5 Starships on Mars. It would be huge, don't get me wrong. Just getting there would be testament to what we can accomplish.
Sure.
But more importantly, it opens up so many possibilities for scientific discovery. Having people living on another planet, the things we could learn, is mind-blowing.
It would definitely change how we see ourselves, how we see the universe. But we can't just ignore the ethical stuff. Sending robots to Mars is one thing. But people. We have a responsibility to think about the impact both on Mars and back here on Earth.
Exactly. Planetary protection is a huge concern. We're always searching for life on other planets, but we have to make sure we don't contaminate those environments with something we brought from Earth. The delicate balance.
Yeah, you don't want to mess up an alien ecosystem because someone forgot to sterilize their boots. And then there's the resource question. Some people argue that we should be focusing our resources here on Earth. Poverty, climate change, things like that. Space exploration can seem frivolous when you think about it like that.
It's an ongoing debate, and both sides have valid points. Should we fix our own planet before we go looking for new ones? Or will pushing the boundaries, going out there, lead to discoveries that benefit everyone in the long run? It's complicated.
Yeah, there's no easy answer. And then there are the ethical implications for the astronauts themselves. These are people basically volunteering for a mission that could have serious long-term risks to their physical and mental health. We have to think about that.
We do. What level of risk is acceptable? What are our obligations to these people who are basically putting their lives on the line?
We can't just shoot them off to Mars and hope for the best, right?
Exactly. Ethics needs to be a central part of every single decision, every technology, everything. Especially as we go further and further from Earth, from everything we're familiar with.
It's a lot to process, but these conversations are important to have.
They're essential. Because the future of space exploration, if we're going to have humans living on other planets, it's not just about the science. It's about facing the ethical challenges head on, making sure what we're doing in space aligns with our values, our responsibilities here on Earth.
It really is a lot to think about. We're talking about potentially changing the course of human history. But even with all these challenges, all the ethical stuff we have to figure out, I can't help but be, a little bit awestruck by it all. Let's say SpaceX actually does it, gets those starships to Mars, builds a base. What would that world even look like? Would it be all sterile domes and underground cities, or is there a chance we'll see people actually living under the Martian sky someday?
It's a question that's been with us for a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Hard to say for sure what the future holds, but we can make some educated guesses. I think, yeah, those early settlements, they'll probably be more about practicality than aesthetics. Survival, first and foremost.
So more like, I don't know, bunkers than luxury condos, at least in the beginning.
Yeah, something like that. But even those early habitats, they're going to be incredible feats of engineering. We're talking about a planet with practically no atmosphere to speak of, extreme temperatures, higher radiation. Just creating a space where people can survive in that environment is a huge accomplishment.
Definitely. It makes me think about, long term. When I picture people actually living on Mars, not just visiting, I think of those biodomes you see in the movies. Big enclosed spaces, trees, maybe even some kind of artificial sun. Is that even remotely possible, or are we stuck with underground bunkers forever?
Never underestimate human ingenuity,
Yeah.
especially when we're trying to make a place feel like home. So yeah, those early habitats, those will be about efficiency, using as few resources as possible. But as time goes on, we could see those habitats getting bigger, more elaborate, huge enclosed spaces that mimic Earth's atmosphere, gravity even, parks, gardens, the works.
Now that sounds more like it. But being realistic, we can't ship Earth to Mars, even with 1,000 starships. How would a Martian colony actually sustain itself, become truly independent?
That's where our friend in situ resource utilization comes in. And that's the key difference, right? We're not just talking about surviving on Mars. We're talking about thriving. Taking water ice from the soil, using it not just for drinking water, but for oxygen, even rocket fuel for the trip back. A closed loop. Imagine a Martian water cycle feeding back into itself.
Like creating a miniature version of Earth
It's on.
on Mars. I've even heard people talking about terraforming. Is that just a pipe dream, or is it something that could actually happen?
Terraforming, turning Mars into a more Earth-like planet. It's a massive idea, maybe even a little bit crazy, something that would take hundreds of years, if it's even possible. But the idea is basically to release scrapped greenhouse gases, thicken the atmosphere, warm the planet up. Some scientists even talk about using engineered organisms to make the air breathable.
So we're talking about actually changing a whole planet. Hard to wrap your head around that. But let's shift gears for a second. Let's say we do get a colony on Mars. What does that mean for us Earthlies? Would that create two branches of humanity, the Earthlings and the Martians?
It's an interesting thought, isn't it? And this is where it gets really fascinating. The cultural stuff is just as mind-blowing as the science. Think about it. You've got a group of people living in a completely different environment from anything we've ever experienced. New problems to solve, new traditions, new ways of governing themselves.
Like the Pilgrims landing in America, but on a whole other planet.
Exactly. And what happens? They develop their own unique culture, their own way of life. Distance and the need to adapt can really accelerate that process of change. Over generations, who knows what might happen? New customs, languages, belief systems.
So we could see the beginning of a whole new chapter in human history. Humanity becoming a multiplanetary species. It's exciting. A little scary, maybe, but exciting.
That's what exploration is all about, isn't it? The unknown. We're pushing the boundaries of what we know, not just about space, but about ourselves. And when it comes to the future of humanity in space, we're just getting started.
Well said. It's been an incredible conversation. The things we've talked about, the challenges, the possibilities, it's almost overwhelming.
It's a lot to take in.
Mm.
But that's how we learn, right?
Yeah.
By grappling with the big questions.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive, one thing is clear. The future of space exploration is still being written. Every discovery, every ethical dilemma, every new technology, it all adds a new layer to the story. And that story, it's just getting good.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So to everyone listening, keep looking up, keep asking those tough questions, and never ever lose that sense of wonder. Until next time.